So my name is Joshua, this is the Power Recovery YouTube channel, and on today's video what we're going to be talking about is how to transition properly out of a fat loss phase into some form of either or gaining phase where you're gaining muscle, or into some kind of maintenance phase where you're trying to preserve what you've lost in your fat loss phase, but you want to try and introduce possibly higher calories and you don't want to be on so much cardio. So the reason I want to do this video is because I find a lot of times when I've done a lot of nutrition consulting work with a lot of clients, or I've done some personal training with them, a common thread seems to come up that they've already previously been on a fat loss phase for a very extended period of time, which might sound a bit counterintuitive to a lot of people because a lot of people come to a personal trainer to lose weight. The problem is that most people come to me and then they've already lost a significant amount of weight in the past, but they've re-lost that weight many, many times. So they've lost 20 pounds, they've regained it, and then lost it back again, regained it, lost it back again. And it seems to be a vicious cycle. And I kept having a lot of clients come to me where they did understand about exercise, they did understand about eating healthy, but their belief system and their kind of knowledge, the scientific literacy they had didn't really suffice for what they required to maintain the weight that they had lost. And what I mean by this is a lot of people, when they do a fat loss phase for an extended period of time, they just think that, when you've lost the weight, that's it. You are now this new person. You have a new body almost. You've forged some form of new identity now of you're that of a leaner person, and then you just go about your life and that's it. Where really in reality there's a lot more things going on with the body when you're losing weight, especially over an extended period of time, and even more especially if you've been losing weight over a long period of time and you've got quite lean, or you've lost a significant amount of body fat in that time. And one of the common things that I find is that a lot of people try and stay too lean all the time. So I run into this roadblock many years ago and I could never understand why my strength was suffering so much. This isn't to say that I'm now recommending that people go from a fat loss phase to now getting fat and putting loads of weight on. But the nature of the beast is that when you are losing body fat, your recovery is probably not going to be quite the same. I do agree that you can maintain a lot of your strength, if not all, or if not build more strength while you're losing. But the nature of it is, if you're a natural athlete and you're training very hard, as you did when you were gaining, the nature of your recovery probably will take a little bit of a hit, to say the least. So just to keep that in mind, you're going to be on lesser calories, you might be doing more cardio, you might be doing more circuit training. And to continually push the same volume you did when you had loads of calories, I have a very swingy and adaptive metabolism. So for me, when I'm gaining, I could probably incrementally work my calories up to probably about 4,000 calories and maintain weight at some point. Now, it takes me a little bit of time to get up to that level, where food now becomes boring, and if you do it right, if you incrementally increase your calories at a slow enough rate, you can get it pretty high. And this is kind of what we want. You want to be a lean physique, strong, but on the highest amount of calories possible, really, while maintaining a very lean physique, because of the obesogenic environment that we live in, it is so easy to gain weight. Think how hard it is to lose 5 pounds versus gaining 5 pounds. We're surrounded by super high calorie foods all the time. The amount of food we have at our disposal is insane. So to combat that as a safety net and with a little bit of an insurance policy, it would be advisable to try and obviously exercise, but also try and increase your metabolic capacity to have higher calories, and you can maintain weight at a leaner body fat or lower body fat while still eating high amounts of food. Now, this isn't an overnight thing. I'm not trying to prescribe this as being like this one day kind of cure-all fix. But generally speaking, I find when people have done a fat loss phase for a long period of time, they've lost a significant amount of weight, and just as an added component of that, say they have got very slim or very lean, that it takes a lot out of your obviously your nervous system with training and stuff like this, but also as well a lot of the hormones in your body. So a lot of things are going to start happening where you're going to have increased appetite. You're going to be hungry all the time. You could still be eating chicken, brown rice, and broccoli meals, typical foods that are full of fiber, full of protein, full of good healthy nutrients. but they're not making you full anymore. You're constantly thinking about food because you've got very lean now. Your body's kind of natural survival instincts are kicking in. The kind of metabolic adaptations are kicking in now, where it could even be becoming more difficult to lose weight. Like I said, your recovery is not quite the same from not having as much food. You're probably doing possibly a little bit more cardio. So we don't want to be there all the time. A fat loss phase is there. It does what it says on the tin, but we don't want to be in the kind of permanent state of being always trying to lose weight. The reason being because obviously, if you've gone over an extended period of time losing weight and you're very lean, and now you could be possibly phobic of putting weight on, your recovery isn't the same, you're hungry, it's a very miserable place to live if you've done it for an extended period of time, and it has a knock-on effect with many things in the body. It might start affecting possibly sleep, cravings, your ability to concentrate, your ability to actually achieve progressive overload when you're training. And it was something I had actually run into. It was I think when I had finished uni, and I think me and my fiance we were moving, and I decided, I'm going to, for once, try and put a bit more muscle on. I've only had maybe a few gaining phases in my life, and I thought I might put some more muscle on, and I noticed how quickly I was able to lift just a little bit more. And it could be a knock-on effect with training and feeling more rested, but it did really help compared to being obviously on lower calories. So I would say when you've done your fat loss phase, you have to really put a deadline on it. Most people just carry on out of the phobia of gaining more weight. I don't want to put more weight on. I don't want to gain everything that I've lost back on, which is an understandable fear. It's a very common thing. But the nature of the beast is obviously we don't want to be losing weight forever. So I would give yourself some form of deadline. And bear in mind that there's a kind of stage in between, what doesn't really get talked about enough, between losing weight and then gaining muscle. And that is an element of, you could call it reverse dieting. I know that is a buzz phrase that people like to say, where you incrementally start walking calories back up from week to week. And possibly as well, maybe backing off a little bit of cardio from week to week. So you eventually get to a point, it might take some time, get to a point where you can actually maintain that leaner body on higher calories with less cardio, and then just continually, trying to achieve progressive overload with your weights. Now, it might take a long time doing this, but I think the benefit is really worth it. Now, this isn't, as well, just to give a little disclaimer, this isn't for people who have done, bodybuilding competition, they've got, sub, 6% body fat or something like that, they're 4% body fat or anything like that. I know it's a different game when they finish their competitions. There might need to be a bit more of an increased rate of putting body fat back on to feel okay. But for most people, I'm talking about people who, it's hard to put a number on these things, but someone who's not necessarily a competitive bodybuilder, pushing the degrees of the physical aesthetics on a stage. So if you've done your fat loss phase, say you've lost, say for example, I had lost about 30 pounds on my fat loss phase recently, got rid of all the lockdown weight, which I was really happy about. But I'm in this kind of cruising phase now where I've noticed, my recovery's not really the same it was. I'm getting more fatigued more easily and more food focused. So for me now, I'm kind of in this stage now, what I'm discussing, where I'm trying to incrementally now increase calories back up. And it's over a period of time, and it's, I'm always kind of in my headspace of wanting to try and build muscle. I've actually had some injuries recently, so I'm actually trying to work with the physio to go through them as well. But the main premise for me at the moment is trying to walk my calories back up and get my body more accustomed to the body fat I am now, trying to maintain what I have while increasing calories. In terms of the phobia of gaining weight, what I will say is I have gone in and out of certain conditions of body fat throughout my entire life. And obviously we don't want to be jumping back and forth too much. I feel at a place now in my life where I feel as though I have the skill set to actually maintain what I've lost. And what I mean by that is I don't necessarily have this desire to say binge, or I don't have the desire to skip training for 2 months or something like that because I'm frustrated with either the way I look or something like that, or I'm too tired, or I have a very balanced routine and I'm very flexible with my eating patterns, and I'm not too rigid with things. But I feel as though from the way I am now, and having things in moderation, still tracking things, there's still an element of self-monitoring which I think can be very useful. And also as well, you can move away from stuff like this as well. I've also talked this about with Steve Taylor on the channel. We went into depth about this, how to step away from tracking food, or possibly even, which I've gone into another video about, your body weight. But it's a useful tool to have. When you are increasing calories, you can still monitor your weight, and it might go up slightly. But say, for example, you manage to walk your calories back up, and you give yourself, say, three months, or just as much time as maybe you were dieting. Maybe, say, if you were dieting 5 months, you spend just 5 months trying to maintain somewhat of what you have, but you're walking your calories up at a steady pace. Say in that 5 months you only gain 2 pounds, but you've increased your calories by, say, 800 or to 1,000. That is a massive, massive investment, that you've actually seen some form of payoff with. And obviously that's an extreme example. Obviously it's going to be very different for each person, but you've maintained somewhat of the your endpoint in your fat loss phase body weight, but you've managed to amp up your total calorie intake to a lot higher. So that way it's actually a lot easier to maintain that low body fat now with more calories at your disposal, because your body's now more accustomed to it. So there's always this kind of adaptive response to the metabolism. It isn't so black and white. It isn't that you get to your end of your fat loss phase and go, well, this is just my life now. I need to just suffer every single day and just keep my calories super low, do tons of cardio. There is a way out of that. And this is what I mean. You don't need to suffer in silence and stay at this unbelievably difficult point with your training and nutrition. The idea is you want to try and do your fat loss phase, put a deadline on it, so you don't get into this, what I've described in some other videos as well, as the cutting addiction. Sometimes cutting and losing body fat is very addictive, because you are getting immediate kind of gratification, really. And especially if you've lost a lot of weight, if a lot of people are praising you and giving a lot of validation, there is a temptation just to keep it going. In comparison to, say, like, if I would say, right, I want you to try and build 10 pounds of muscle, come back when you're finished, and we were to measure your body fat and your muscle to fat ratios and stuff on some form of metrics and measuring devices, that would probably, gaining 10 pounds of muscle would probably take quite a long time. But if I said, right, I want you to try and lose 10 pounds of body fat, it probably would be a lot quicker than trying to gain 10 pounds of muscle. So there is that kind of time component. You're going to be getting a lot of positive feedback from the outside world and yourself when you're losing body fat. And it's very difficult for people to come away from that, because they have that kind of, you've got the validation there, but also as well, you've got the, you've got the validation there, but also the fear of gaining weight, putting it all back on, feeling like you're going to relapse. Personally, if you do something where you transition out of it properly, you will not have them insurmountable cravings. You won't have the desire to go and binge eat by any means, because you've done the work to try and get your metabolism caught back up again, and kind of offset some of the lower calories that you've been on for quite a while. And most people don't even know about this phase. They just think they just need to gain muscle and lose fat. And I had this kind of thought one day that surely that isn't healthy to just keep gaining muscle one time and then lose fat another time. There has to be a bit of space in between where you can actually now practice stepping away from the dietary self-monitoring or the body weight tracking. There needs to be a time where we're stepping a little bit away from not doing so much cardio, and we focus on now maintaining what we've gained from the fat loss phase, or lost in what was lost from the fat loss phase, and we're maintaining that. And then we're getting to a place now where we're trying to feel okay in ourselves, because you might be quite depleted possibly from your fat loss phase, having lower calories, more exercise, might have a knock-on effect with your sleep if you're trying to work as well and have a family life and go out and socialise. So there needs to be some time to actually bring things back up, and you'll notice your mood will start feeling better. You won't be as hungry all the time. Generally speaking, when you're coming out of the fat loss phase, it's quite a difficult time, because obviously you're kind of some of the hormones that you produce in your body are going to be suppressed. So things like hormones that make you feel full and regulate your appetite. and you're going to be feeling a lot hungrier at the end of a fat loss phase. So there is a temptation to completely blow it and just go and revert back to what you ate before the fat loss phase. And if you do that, if you imagine, over the course of, say, just a 5-month period, and you've incrementally lowered your calories when you've stalled or you've done more cardio, accumulatively doing that over a 5-month period, just for example, to go from, say, having nearly 3,000 calories down to, say, 2,000 calories or possibly lower over the 5 months, going, like I said, if you hit a sticking point, lowering your calories slightly or doing more cardio, that's going to take a massive toll on your body, your psychology, how you feel about yourself, your recovery. And at that point, when you're tired and super hungry at the end of a fat loss phase, especially if you have actually lost a significant amount of weight and you're very lean and very slim, there is a temptation then, because you are tired and hungry, to want to overeat. And then as you overeat, you feel probably maybe embarrassed and you don't want to go outside and you don't want to socialize and be around other people. So then you don't go to the gym. And most people, the statistics on how many people actually sustain the weight they've lost through a fat loss phase is pretty small. I think, as far as remember from the statistics, I think 95% of people actually fail their diets. It's between 80 and about 98 or 97% of people usually gain most of the weight back that they've lost from the fat loss phase within the first year post-fat loss phase. And I think, if I remember correctly, it's after the 3 to 5 year mark that most people actually gain more weight than what they originally had lost. That is a very shocking statistic. And considering the income and the total revenue from any kind of weight loss service and products, the revenue for them products and services has gone up and up and up and up. And obesity just seems to be going up and up, so nothing seems to be working. But I do feel this is a bit of a missing component in the fat loss process. It's a kind of journey of two halves, really. That it isn't just the sake of just losing weight and then you just revert back to normal. There is a stage in between where you have to kind of work a bit of magic and be very patient with yourself of walking calories back up and possibly dropping on cardio, but it's done in a very incremental fashion. And that way, like I said, you can maintain that lean physique with higher calories, less cardio, and just focus on your weights and feeling better, not so food focused all the time, and trying to let go some of the more OCD tendencies you may have regarding, like dietary self-monitoring or body weight tracking. And it decreases the chance of having a relapse. Generally speaking, at the end of a fat loss phase, what I would say is that you want to try and possibly increase your calories at the end of it. If you've set yourself a deadline, and when you reach that deadline, at that point, reassess yourself. If you think you need to, diet longer, by all means do it. But make sure you're structuring in like maybe diet breaks, possibly refeeds where you're having, say, like a week or two at your predicted maintenance calories. So it's a little bit higher calories than your dieting calories. Give yourself a little break, and if you just reassess yourself and you feel that you need to lose a bit more, by all means do so. But make sure you're structuring them kind of schedule higher calorie days as well, higher calorie weeks, just to keep it. It's more of a morale boost more than anything. It's more of a psychological benefit, as well as it kind of replenishes a little bit of glycogen as well. So you'll probably have a knock-on effect with like your mood, how you sleep, and also maybe a bit on your training as well. So fueling exercise performance. So make sure you are doing that. But what I would say is set yourself a deadline and try and see if you can bring your fat loss phase to a close, and just accept that you can lose weight at another time as well. But you don't want to be going, years on end trying to keep your calories super low, because it just has a knock-on effect with hunger, your appetite, many other things, training performance, mood, and it's important for you to feel good, just as a baseline level of feeling good. I would highly recommend trying to do this, because also as well, if you have that kind of massive phobia of gaining weight, this will help you transition out of this habit of feeling this way a lot easier. Because the goal isn't, like I said, to just pile on loads of weight after a fat loss phase. The idea is we want to maintain it, but we want to get our metabolism back up to scratch, so it becomes a lot more manageable in this kind of obesogenic environment that we live in. We're surrounded by loads of high-calorie foods. It makes it easier to eat out. You don't have to be so rigid then. You can have higher-calorie meals and it's not going to impact your body weight, and it's not going to impact your levels of body fat. So that's what I recommend doing. And as you get to the end of the fat loss phase, I would try and ramp your calories up at least to a baseline of whatever your predicted maintenance is for that time. So at the end of a fat loss phase, it's going to be very different than your maintenance calories at the start of it, especially if you've been doing it. I keep saying 5 months as an example, but if we just use that as an example, if you've been incrementally going down in calories, or you've been incrementally going down in calories and then adding cardio in, your metabolism is going to look very different at the end of a fat loss phase. It's probably going to be a lot lower. And there is that adaptive component to the metabolism that your body's always trying to match where you're at to prevent you from dying. So if I drop my calories, I'll have a big spike in weight loss, but my body will try and match where my calories are at, or at least lower it slightly so I don't lose any more weight. So it prevents me from dying. So it's good and bad. Obviously, we have that survival mechanism there as protection, but at the same time, if we're the goal of losing body fat and looking lean and healthy and athletic, then it can cause problems as you get leaner. Obviously, your body's going to start to fight it more. So bearing this in mind, at the end of the fat loss phase, generally speaking, you want to try and up your calories to whatever your predicted maintenance is. So this is an approximated maintenance calories where you're not gaining or losing weight. For every person, that's going to be different. I'm not going to give you a calculation. You can look that up online. By all means, do that for yourself if you feel that's best for you. You can also, what I usually generally like to do, I usually prefer doing, especially in a fat loss phase, doing a daily weigh-in. I've done a separate video on the whole method of how to do that correctly. Most people don't weigh themselves correctly whatsoever. Most people weigh themselves after 3 meals. They weigh at the end of the day after 2 gallons of water, tons of sodium, all the clothes on, and they get a completely inaccurate reading. It actually weighs them way heavier than they actually are. If you want to do an accurate reading of your body weight, you need to I recommend doing it the first thing in the morning before food and drink, no clothes on, after going to the bathroom, and trying to weigh yourself at the same time every week when you do it. And that way you have something to track it against. And that's the most accurate depiction of your current total body weight with no additional weight being added to it. So that's what I would do. And you can track your body weight if you're doing or a semi-frequent weigh-in. You could do it every 2-3 days, something like that, and you can see if you're gaining or losing weight a lot faster rather than waiting say every 2 weeks to weigh it, which is also fine if you're a bit, if this is all dependent on the individual. Obviously, if you're the kind of person who you're already very triggered by the scale and you're already in a headspace that you don't like weighing yourself, by all means, on a separate video, I actually list many of the strategies that you can use to track your progress with your body composition goals. And also, I list many ways to actually do it and execute it without necessarily weighing your body weight. Because I know it is a bit of a trigger in things for a lot of people. There is a right way and a wrong way to do it. So there is a sensible, responsible way to use it. And it doesn't need to be this obsessive, highly triggering thing. But my point being is, after a fat loss phase, if you can at least ramp your calories up to some form of maintenance calories where you're not necessarily gaining or losing weight based on your current levels of activity, and it will just give you a little bit more breathing space after a fat loss phase, and it will give you a bit more calories to play with. And then from that point, what I would suggest doing is kind of cruising at that for maybe a few weeks, and then just slowly, incrementally increasing it. Again, this is at the discretion of the user. This isn't me just saying just increase it for the sake of it. If you want to be at that maintenance calorie for a bit longer, by all means do so. But the idea is that we're trying to slowly introduce more calories to the point that we are feeling good. And we want to try and maintain this current new physique that we've created for some period of time. I remember, I think it was Paul Riviera, who was on the show. He actually had said that most people, their hormones actually only get back up to scratch properly, really, after the same length of time that you spent dieting as you spent recovering from the diet. So that's obviously, I know with Paul, he deals mainly with physique athletes. So obviously they're at the extreme end of the super lean levels of body fat. So you might need to do it quite as long as your fat loss phase, but you have to consider how long you've been dieting for. So if you've been dieting, say 3 to 4 months, you might spend 3 to 4 months just trying to work calories back up and slowly, incrementally come off your cardio. If you want to keep a bit in, by all means do so. Go at your own pace with things. There's no right or wrong. You just have to kind of be very in tune with your own body and the way you want to look and feel. So hope that makes sense. If you get to that place then where you start feeling really good, you can tell your strength training's really improving, that you've maybe built some of the strength that you may have lost back. You might put a bit more muscle on. You can always transition then from that point onwards into some form of gaining phase, which will probably not look that much different, to be honest. But the main premise of this video is that you need to take your time doing this. You can't just, after a fat loss phase, revert back to the way you were eating before you lost the weight, because you probably gain a lot more weight back on. So I hope you guys have enjoyed that video. Any questions, by all means, leave me a comment below. If you like the video, give it a like, share it with your friends, and subscribe. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.